This is my passage analysis video of an important passage from chapter 6 of Their Eyes Were Watching God. I will read the passage first and then highlight some literary devices that are important to understanding the passage. Every morning the world flung itself over and exposed the town to the sun. So Janie had another day, and every day had a store in it, except Sundays. The store itself was a pleasant place, if only she didn't have to sell things. When the people sat around on the porch and passed around the pictures of their thoughts for the others to look at and see, it was nice. The fact that the thought pictures were always crayon enlargements of life made it even nicer to listen to. Take, for instance, the case of Matt Bonner's yellow mule. They had him up for conversation every day the Lord sent. Janie loved the conversation, and sometimes she thought up good stories on the mule, but Joe had forbidden her to indulge. He didn't want her talking after such trashy people. "You's Mrs. Mayor Starks, Janie. I can't see what a woman of your stability will want to be treasuring all that gum grease from folks that don't even own de house they sleep in. 'Tain't no earthly use. They just some puny humans playing around the toes of time." Janie noted that while he didn't talk the mule himself, he sat and laughed at it. Laughed his big ha laugh too. But when Lige or Sam or Walter or some of the other big picture talkers were using a side of the world for a canvas, Joe would hustle her off inside the store to sell something. When the mule was in front of the store, Lum went out and tackled him. The brute jerked up his head, laid back his ears, and rushed to the attack. Lum had to run for safety. 5 or 6 more men left the porch and surrounded the fractious beast, goosing him in the sides and making him show his temper. But he had more spirit left than body. He was soon panting and heaving from the effort of spinning his carcass about. Everybody was having fun at the mule baiting, all but Janie. She snatched her head away from the spectacle and began muttering to herself. "They ought to be shamed of theyselves, teasing that poor brute beast like they is. Done been worked to death, done had his disposition ruined with mistreatment, and now they got to finish devilin' him to death. Wished I had my way with 'em all." She walked away from the porch and found something to busy herself with in the back of the store, so she did not hear Jody when he stopped laughing. She didn't know that he had heard her, but she did hear him yell out, "Lum, that's enough. You-all done had your fun now. Stop your foolishness and go tell Matt Bonner I wants to have a talk with him right away." Janie came back out front and sat down. She didn't say anything, and neither did Joe. But after a while he looked down at his feet and said, "Janie, I reckon you better go fetch me them old black gaiters. These tan shoes sets my feet on fire. Plenty of room in 'em, but they hurts regardless." She got up without a word and went off for the shoes. A little war of defense for helpless things was going on inside her. People ought to have some regard for helpless things. She wanted to fight about it. But I hates disagreement and confusion, so I better not talk. It makes it hard to get along. She didn't hurry back. She fumbled round long enough to get her face straight. When she got back, Joe was talking with Matt. So here is my interpretation, or my analysis, of some important aspects of this passage. So first we have the sentence, "Every morning the world flung itself over and exposed the town to the sun." The author takes a fairly normal and really unexciting event, the start of a day, and uses some hyperbolic elements to exaggerate it and make it out to be this almost like violent and really extreme powerful scene. Then, this figuratively rich and almost overwhelming sentence is juxtaposed to the fairly simple sentence, "So Janie had another day." And I think the author does this to really describe how far removed Janie is from life. There's this huge event, the passing of yesterday and the beginning of today, and Janie is still stuck in the same rut, still ruled by her husband Jody, still not in charge of her own freedom. The other kind of interesting thing about this section is when Janie talks about how the people passed around pictures of their thoughts, and that these pictures were crayon enlargements of life. This figurative language makes the storytelling on the porch really come to life and develop a whole new meaning. Art is usually thought of as a thing of beauty. It's creative, it's fun. And when you think of crayon drawings, you get this sense of simplicity and childlike ease. Janie says that it was nice to listen to these picture thoughts, and this really just shows her longing and her love for its creativeness and simplicity. She doesn't like the structured life of the store, but would rather be invited into the freeing act of expressing her truths and her stories. Even though Janie has good stories, Jody, her husband, says she can't participate. This not only describes the really controlling aspect of Jody's character and the sort of abused aspect of Janie's character, but it also points to this theme of exclusion. Janie is time and time again kept in the cage of society's ways. Jody goes on to identify Janie as Mrs. Mayor Starks. He sees her as simply a bonus to his title. She is who she is because of him. And because of this, she can't be seen talking to trashy people and puny humans playing around the toes of time. Joe's diction makes out that the townspeople aren't worth the time of day, yet these are the very people he spends all his time with. He contradicts himself. And deep down, I really think that Jody is just jealous. He doesn't want the guys on the porch to share stories with his wife, and he doesn't want Janie to express herself because that runs the risk of her outshining him, really. When Janie talks about Jody's big laugh, it seems like a slightly cynical, or maybe more rather a sarcastic remark. The way that this laugh is described makes Jody sound kind of fake or uppity. And then finally, we again come back to the figurative description of the big picture talkers, using the side of the world as a canvas. Janie is again shooed away from the beauty of stories and this freedom in creation. So the main literary technique in this section is the symbolism of the mule. All the guys are having fun goosing the mule in the sides and making him show his temper, but Janie has to turn away. In fact, it says she snatched her head away from the spectacle, a more abrupt and definitive movement than just turning away. The mule is like Janie in a lot of ways, and because of this, she has a deep sympathy for him. They're both helpless and degraded at times. The mule is starved of food, and Janie, she's starved of love and self-worth. The mule is stuck in a plow and forced to work, and Janie, she's stuck in a high tower, forced to keep her mouth shut and sit pretty. Janie says that the men should be ashamed of themselves. She says that the mule has been worked to death and had his disposition ruined with mistreatment. Now the men got to finish deviling him to death. This hyperbole, the repetition of death, and the phrase ruined with mistreatment just go to describe how fed up Janie is with the horrible life of a mule, how much of life dies to you when you become a mule. And then there's this weird little part at the end of the section where Jody hears Janie's comment, stops laughing, and tells the others to stop provoking the mule. Jody's character is complex. Here we see that he does actually value Janie's emotions. As we go on, it says that Jody looked down at his feet, an act that's generally associated with shame. However, almost catching himself, he tells Janie to go fetch him them old black gaiters because the tan shoe sets his feet on fire. Janie gets up without a word and does what she is told. This is ironic. Jody stops the mistreatment of the mule, but he goes on disrespecting Janie and giving her orders. Janie has this little war of defense for helpless things going on in her mind, but she decides she better not talk. And again, there's this theme of being excluded from the rest of the world and caged in by orders and structure. The section ends by Janie trying to get her face straight. This figurative description shows that Janie has to continually put on this front to hide her real emotions and opinions from Jody and the rest of the world. So that is the end of my passage analysis video. A little bit of a depressing ending, but it does get better for Janie. So thank you for watching.